And go ahead and get started. Today we have Dan Stalp with us, and he is the president of Sandler Training. He has 27 years of experience leading, training, and coaching high-performing individuals. So we're very, very fortunate to have him with us today. He's risked everything and started over twice career-wise in 1993 as a benefits broker, and then again in 2005 with his Sandler Training office. Dan has co-authored 3 books, The Reunion in 2011, another reunion in 2013, and the last reunion in 2020 about career significance and how pursuing what you were meant to do, along with being grateful, plays an instrumental role in being the best you can be. He's blessed to be a mentor with the Hellsberg Entrepreneurial Mentoring Program in Kansas City. He is asked to be interviewed on numerous panels, podcasts, and radio programs concerning sales, sales management, and leadership. Again, we are so honored and blessed and fortunate to have you joining us. I want to go over just a couple real quick housekeeping ideas before we get started, Dan. We want this to be an interactive session with Dan today. So if you have questions, would you go ahead and type them out in the chat? I will be monitoring those, and then throughout the discussion, I'll ask Dan our questions. And then we do need to end right at 1 today, so let's get this kicked off.
All right, well, thank you for having me. Good to see some familiar faces and see a lot of new faces. And yeah, today's topic is prospecting in uncertain times. So the part of what we're going to talk today are just maybe some of you might be struggling with what to say, maybe that you were not a few months ago. Some of you have been kind of out of sync, behaviorally, like you've been at home and you've been and then you were at work, and then you were at home, and now you're back to work, and just kind of feeling a little lull there. But the other thing that we've been seeing quite a bit with our clients is sometimes their attitudes have shifted a little bit, and they've not all been what I'll call supportive of what they're trying to do. And for those of you that are, out there, maybe you own your own company and you are also in, selling, or maybe you are a professional salesperson within a company, we kind of got to keep those three plates spinning at all times. So what I thought I'd do is just kind of get us involved. We'll do some kind of informal polls just through chat. I didn't set up polls because I might just decide to do one on a whim. But just to kind of get us started, I'm going to share a screen. And as Deb said, we want this to be interactive. And some of you, it's just better to just keep it quiet because you might have kids and dogs and cats in the background. But if some of you, for some reason, do want to unmute yourself, if it's easier, you can also ask the question that way. So let's just kind of jump in here. So back to the agenda. These were the 3 main areas I thought it would make sense to talk about today. Is technique. The technique has modified a little bit in terms of not only what we're saying, but how we're getting the message out. Behavior, maybe what was enough pre-COVID is not enough now. And what we find is about 20% of the folks we talk to, believe it or not, their businesses are up. And so that's encouraging. Anytime you have a huge disruption like this that impacts the entire world, there's going to be people that don't benefit, and there's people that do benefit. About 60% of us are kind of, a little better, a little worse, but nothing, drastic. And then, of course, we hear a lot, if you watch the news at all, about the bottom 20%. And when I say the bottom, I mean the ones that have really been hurt by this. And those are pretty obvious, which industries they are. But I think it's important for us to realize that not everybody's, even though we've all been impacted by this, we're not all being hurt the same way. So behaviorally, some of you need to do a little more. Some of you can just keep doing what you're doing. And some of you actually need to do quite a bit more, or you can actually get by with less. And then the attitude is, depending on what you're watching and who you're listening to, over time, if you're watching what the news reports say, it could be negatively impacting your attitudes about things more so than what's really going down. So we're going to talk a little bit about, how to correct that. Well, I thought we could do just to start things off and make it kind of fun, as it relates to prospecting and as it relates to, you know, where we are as of June, whatever today is, June 3rd or 4th. What do you think are you struggling with the most? Is it more the technique, like what to say and how to get in front of them? Is it more behaviorally that maybe you've just kind of found yourself a little out of sorts or maybe not paying attention or to what you were doing before? Or is it more of an attitude? So just maybe put a T for technique, a B for behavior, or an A for attitude. And this will give us a chance to actually use the chat and just put in the chat what that looks like for you. Is it more of a T for technique, a B for behavior, or an A for attitude? All right, I'm seeing a lot of T's so far. And we're going to hit all of them, but I just thought it might be interesting just to see what you guys care about the most. All right, well, if I was a horse bettor, I would say T's going to win. So it looks like it's more that. Well, fortunately, I decided to start with that because I had a feeling that might be more of it for you guys. So thanks for participating. Now you all know where the chat feature is. And as Deb said, if you want to type a question in there, you can. If for some reason, you know, sometimes it's just hard to communicate that way. So in the top right-hand corner of your own picture, actually, I think you can unmute yourself there, or you can go down to the bottom and do that too. And like we said, we're looking for interaction, and thank you for being interactive on that part. Okay, let's go back. All right, well, let's jump right in. Just a second here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about technique. Now, what's interesting is, and I don't know how many of you were professionally working in 2008 and 9, maybe 10, when we had the last crisis, or how many of you were actually selling back then. But, you know, it really created some opportunities that wouldn't have happened had that not happened. I believe it's happening again here. And so one of the things that, one of my lessons learned from 2008 and 9 was, instead of trying to hold on to what I have, you know, kind of, you know, like the toilet paper hoarding type thing, is it's a good time to give back. So part of the reason why and this is kind of on the, I don't have too many of these scheduled anymore, but this was my way to give back, you know, was just to do these through chambers and you know, anyone that just thought it was good. But what's interesting is the way that first bullet point, what is the impact of your product or service on clients, that may have actually shifted on you a little bit because of what's been happening and actually what continues to happen. You know, even though we're transitioning back to our offices, we are, in my mind, far from being business as usual, right? So we don't want to act like business as usual, but we also want to look at, you know, how does that impact some of my positioning impact statements? And so we're going to get into that a little bit, how to do that. And then, of course, most of us have competitors, right? So it's one thing that they need our product or service, which is what the first one is. But then the next question is, but why me over someone else? And so that's another good thing to just make sure you're updating yourself on based on what's transpired over the last 3 months. And then this one, the last one, I think is something that usually goes kind of largely undiagnosed. And what do they lose if they don't buy from you? So let me give you a little bit of context around that. We do a lot of work around, you know, having people, you know, motivating people. You know, everybody wants their salespeople to be motivated, right? And that's what we do, is we help train, coach, motivate. But the reality of it is most people are more likely to do something that they want to do, but they don't do. Does that make sense? You know, there's a lot of things that I know I want to do, but I don't always do them. But most of us are more likely to actually do it if we are about to lose something versus gain. In fact, it's kind of like an 80-20. 80% of us are more likely, it's part of the reason why, you know, sometimes people my age or older for the first time get in shape, just because they had a health scare. And when they're, you know, 20s, 30s, 40s, and they can get away with that stuff and it doesn't appear to make a difference, and then they have a health scare and all of a sudden like, okay, maybe I do need to lose some weight, or maybe I do need to get in shape. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because for people to start working with you, right? They're currently not. They have to start doing things differently. And so they're either going to maybe hire someone to do what you do for the first time, or they not only are going to hire you, but they need to fire someone else to hire you. So I thought what we could do, just as another little informal poll here, if someone has to get fired, not within the organization, like a competitor has to get fired for you to get hired, then I want you to type fire, fired, I guess would be a better word. And if that's not the case, then you can just put hired. I just get hired. I rarely have a competitor. I really have to unseat anybody. It's more just, they've just never done it before. So we'll just see what comes through the chats here. Does someone need to get fired, a competitor, before you get hired? Or is that really not the case? Then you would just type hired. So we're just going to see, okay, there's one hired, fired, fired, fired. Both, yep. Okay, so I'm seeing more fireds than hireds. For those of you that it's typically a hired, that is probably what we call a unique value type of sale. Like they may not have it right now, and until they met you, they didn't even know they needed it. And frankly, that's one of the harder sales. But when someone gets fired, they already have it. You don't have to talk them into, like I think Deb mentioned I was a benefits broker. Well, it was pretty rare back then that someone didn't offer some type of benefits, right? So I didn't have to like convince them that they needed benefits. They already had benefits. But what we had to talk about was why me instead of just staying put. And that would be the ones of you that put fired, okay? Now the role I'm in, rarely if ever are they already paying someone else to do training. So now I went from the fired side, I've only really had 3 jobs in 30 some years, but I went from the fired side when I was on the benefits, I had to fire somebody, to now where they rarely if ever fire anybody, but they are going to hire me. And so it's just different, okay? And something to think about. But for people to do that, they're typically trying to avoid something that either they perceive is happening or they perceive it could happen, okay? So something to think about. Yes.
We had a question come in, and it's very pertinent in that so many people do face-to-face interviews and discussions, and we don't have that right now except for Zoom. And so many networking events are not happening. So what do we do in those times to keep our sales up and going?
Yeah, so I would suggest that you attempt to do as many Zooms or that type of software, it doesn't have to be Zoom, as you can, because what happens is, now that's assuming that I would start out with a phone call or an email, right? That's how you're going to get them. You're not going to do a prospect, just do all your prospecting through Zoom. But once you get somebody that's interested in what you have, this is way better. Because as you can see, it allows me to share a screen. It allows me to see the person, allows them to see me. The other thing that's complicated things is, used to be if I went to someone's business and there were 2 or 3 people that needed to be on that call, we were all in the same room, right? It was me and then maybe 2 or 3 others. Well, that's a lot clunkier on the phone. A lot of people just aren't very good at that. But with Zoom, what's nice about it is we can all see one another. In fact, it's been kind of funny when I've had a few of those appointments. As soon as we get on, the 2 or 3 people that work together but haven't been seeing each other, they're just like, blah, 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 right? They like, hey, how's it going? Oh my gosh, it's almost like, it's been a minute, right, since we used to spend time together. But I would encourage that, because I've found that Zoom is actually easier to coordinate that, and we get to see each other than conference calls. Plus on conference calls, kind of like, God, who was it that just said that? You know, I don't even know these people that well. I'm having a hard time even keeping track of who's saying what, okay? So now the networking and all that, I would encourage you, if you've been networking, it's been working before, to still do the networking through the Zoom calls. Because at least you're not, you know, who can finish this sentence? Out of sight, out of mind, right? So if even in something like this, like I haven't seen Simon in over 15 years, and you know, I see Ron every once in a while, but I haven't seen Ron recently because we haven't gone anywhere, right? So it's just kind of one of those things where you don't want to be out of mind with people. So I don't know if I answered the question or not. Is that so far so good?
I think that was great. Thank you.
Yeah. I am going to get into some behaviors that maybe some of you may have forgotten about, in addition to this, you know, just not being able to see people as much when we get into the behavior. Okay, so thanks, and continue to ask the questions. They're kind of monitoring the chat because I got too much else going on here. Okay, so what I thought, this is a technique that some of you may not necessarily like all this. This is something that we call this no pressure call script. And what you're going to find out is when we get to the second part of this, it could easily be an email. But assuming you get somebody on the phone, which is, you know, not easy these days. But one thing that I've noticed about 5 or 6 weeks into this, I'm calling it a pause, a 10-week or a 12-week pause, whatever we're on. I was getting completely opposite views of getting a hold of people. And I just thought, how can this be? I mean, I had some people that, oh my gosh, I'm getting a hold of so many more people than before the, you know, the pause, and it's just crazy. And I'm like, I know, I've kind of found that too. I have other people say, I couldn't, you know, get a hold of anybody if it saved my life. You know, nobody's, and I'm just like, okay, that can't all be mindset, right? I mean, I do think mindset's part of it. We're going to get into that at the end, attitudes. Well, what I discovered in talking to, you know, just asking people about it is, if you want to get in front of decision makers, which just letting you know, that's what you want to do, they are more available. The people that are less available are what I call the gatherers. So let's do this real quick. If you call on businesses primarily, and let's not do, both is great, but are you primarily calling on businesses, or are you primarily calling on consumers? So individuals versus businesses. I just want to get a sense for what the group is here, because now we're up to 2 pages. So are you calling on business to business? You know, you're calling on businesses, or are you calling more on what we call consumer? They call it B2B or B2C. Just want to see here. Yep, I'm seeing businesses so far. Okay, so I just want to make sure, because if you're all consumer, what I'm about to share doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you are truly calling on people who can say yes, and not just people who can say no, gatherers can tell you no. I could talk to the least paid person in a company. They happen to answer the phone and they can get rid of me, right? But they can't say yes. And so one of the things we really stress is, are you calling people who can say yes, or are you only calling on people who can say no? Because if you're calling on people who can just say no, you're going to be like a salmon and you're always swimming upstream. It's not the easier, gentler way. So back to my comment earlier, decision makers are actually more available. They're actually in some ways more effective and available because they're not in the office. Gatherers, and these are people that are typically gathering information for the decision maker, they're harder to get a hold of. And I have a lot of ideas about that, but I'm not going to share them because there might be a couple of you on this Zoom call. Let's just say I think they're jacking around a lot. That's all. So here's the thing. That wouldn't be my first place to call anyway. Now, if a gatherer calls me, of course I'm going to talk to them. But I'm not looking to call gatherers. I'm looking to call decision makers. So that might be worth the price of admission right there for some of you. Because I've listened to people when they call on companies, they say this. They don't know who they want to talk to. They just say, who handles fill in the blank? Okay, someone who handles it probably doesn't make a decision about it. So you are asking for things and you don't even realize it that you don't want. Why can't we just say who makes the decisions as it relates to blankety blank? It's the same question. Okay, so something to think about. All right, here we go. So our suggestion on this, and I'm not going to say all of our clients follow this to a T, but a lot of them that do quite a bit of prospecting over the phone, and this could be used for a referral, for a lead, for a cold call. You don't have to have a whole different set of things to say. So one of the things, assuming that you get the person on the phone, is you want to do what's called a pattern interrupt. And so, like, for example, I might say, Bill, this is Dan Stalp with Sandler Training. My name and company name probably doesn't ring a bell. So instead of me getting someone on the phone and then I am off to the races, that's what telemarketers do. You've all had it happen. I'm going to engage this person immediately with a question. And the reason I'm doing this is because cognitively, you can't do two things at the same time. Now, if I can walk and talk at the same time, right? Because I can walk automatically, but I can't like listen to one voice or listen to one conversation and try to type an email to someone else. And I know some of you think you can. I'm just letting you know you're not effective at either one when you do that. It has to be something that you can automatically do, not have to think. Driving is kind of that way. So what's happening is this person's going to say one of two answers. So you're going to say, yeah. And then I'm going to say, well, tell me about that, because it's probably something I should know. Or they're going to say no. And I was going to say, I don't think so. So nobody gets hurt yet. So now we're going to do what's called just a little verbal contract. Well, how about I take a couple minutes to share with you who I am and why I'm calling, and then you can decide whether to continue talking. See, I'm engaging them again, right? And the point of it is there's a couple psychological triggers in that question. One is, first of all, I'm asking for 2 minutes. I really only need about 45 seconds. So I'm already under promising and over delivering. Now, if they want to continue to talk, we're going to go beyond 2 minutes, but my portion's 45 seconds. Share is a psychological trigger. Almost every kid in the whole wide world, or at least in the US, was told to share at some point. And then I'm just saying who I am and why I'm calling. That's clear. But then I'm passing the baton of power to them, and then you can decide if you want to continue the conversation. This is where that no pressure comes from. Now, I bet a lot of you are going, why would you allow that? Because I bet they all say no. Let me just see some faces here. I bet some people are going, why in the hell would you do that? They're just going to say no. Well, I would encourage you to do it at least 10 times and then tell me what you think. Because this is an example of your attitude about that is not supportive. And I know you think you're being realistic, but you've never done it. So really, you're not being realistic because you've never done it, okay? So occasionally they say no, and it's legit. One time, I was doing one of these, I don't remember, I've done so many of them. And, but I was one that I was hosting. So I was little just kind of watching my phone in case someone was having trouble getting in, because this is like beginning of April. And someone was calling me about 5 to noon, and my thing started at noon. And I look at it, I go, I'm just going to take it real quick because it could be somebody who just couldn't find the link or whatever. And I say, hello. And it was a recruiter. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't care if you have the cure to cancer. I'm not talking to you right now. I mean, the timing was horrible, right? And, and I did call her back, but I mean, she had no idea. She was probably trying to get a couple more calls in before lunch, So anyway, that happens, right? Otherwise, assuming she wasn't a bulldog, I would have taken a phone call. So those things happen, but more often than not, they just kind of give you like a mercy yes. And it kind of sounds like this. Oh, okay. and you know what? I'll take that all day long because they don't even know what they're missing. So yes, I'll take it. So now here's the thing. I had some people when the pause first happened that they went one extreme to the other. They're just like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? And all this stuff. And these people are like, if one more person asks me how I'm doing that I don't know, my head's going to explode. You know, they don't really want to talk to you about that. Or the other people are just acting like nothing happened. This is just nothing, you know, and I'm just going to act like nothing's happened. So I'm just letting you know those two extremes are not where you want to go. If you don't know this person, let's just kind of get down to why you're calling, and then you can decide, they'll decide if they want to tell you anything. So one little, uncertain times precursor I put in there, because remember I said 20, 60, 20? Well, that's what this says. Oop. Before we get started, instead of how are you doing, because they know you, they don't even know you. They're not going to tell you anything. But if you said something like, before we get started, some of our clients' businesses are up, some are about the same, and others have been really, really impacted. What's it been like for you? Or what's it like for you right now? So I'm going to stop here. Why would I want to know that before I jump in? Anybody, if you want to unmute yourself, that'd be great. Kind of hard to do that in the chat. Why would I want to know not just how they are? That's kind of like, how are you today? That's code word for I'm a salesperson and don't tell me anything. But if I said, some people are a little better off, some are about the same, and some have been really impacted. What's it like for you? Why would I want to know that before I get into what I do? Anybody? Well, it could maybe impact what we talk about there. And if I, just assume that, everybody's been hurt by this, but they've been helped, I could be a little off in what I'm talking about, right? And it also just acknowledges that this is not normal, okay? And it may not be normal for quite a while. And I don't think normal will ever be what it was in February, but we will get a new normal. This isn't it. We are not in a new normal right now. We're in still abnormal. So that's why this is still uncertain. It could be uncertain. I mean, you could argue it was uncertain even before COVID hit. But let's face it, this is impacting the entire world. So, but we just need to know where they are. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter what my average client does. It matters what they are experiencing. Okay, so we're going to come back here. All right, so then once they tell me, and then whatever they say, just tell me about that. So I don't know if you've noticed, but even in this first part, they are getting to communicate a fair amount. It's not me just, you're going to listen to what I have to say, whether you like it or not. That's not what's happening here. This is a dialogue, not a monologue. Okay? And, nobody wants to have a long-term relationship with someone who's monologuing them all the time. Let's just put it that way. And I know some of you have been putting up with it for a while, but they're definitely not going to be putting up with somebody they don't even know. I'm just going to just leave it at that. Okay. Then once that is, that's over, then now let's get into the good stuff. So now I think most people on here either have some type of sales bent. I mean, there's a reason that you decided to participate in prospecting in uncertain times. Now that doesn't mean that you're all, producers or business development or whatever. But I'm just going to give you an example of how we're not going to talk about what Sandler does in this next part. We're going to talk about why people want to learn more. And this is exactly what you want to do, but for your business, okay? When we talk about features and benefits and why we're so awesome, I'm just telling you, people are not assimilating that. You think they are because you're in it day in and day out, but you are one of 100 things that they're doing that day. They are not assimilating that. So there's a really popular radio station out there called WIIFM. WIIFM. Anybody ever heard of it? Courtney, do you mind unmuting yourself?
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me? Thank you, Courtney. See, now you guys know that you can unmute yourselves. Yeah, what's in it for me? And a lot of us are on an AM station when it relates to that. We're talking about our own stuff, and our frequencies are not crisscrossing. So if we can talk more about what's in it for them, as opposed to why I'm so freaking awesome, I'm just letting you know it's going to go a lot better, okay? And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just go out and look at your websites. Most of them are completely on an AM station. And nobody really cares about it but you. I mean, no, all the workers go, oh, it's so wonderful. And prospects go, I can't find anything anywhere. And I have no idea what these people do. And they're pretty full of themselves. So there's no reason to be full of ourselves. I mean, you can be confident, competent, all that stuff, but you got to talk on their frequency. So back to this. Okay, so now I think it's also really important for you to decide who are the people you really want to work with versus the people you have worked with. Pause. I'm going to keep using that word because it's more, makes me creative as opposed to the sucks. Pre-pause was that, okay, where was I going with that? Is that maybe the people that you really wanted to work with, the people that got you to where you are aren't necessarily the people that are going to get you to where you want to go. Business owners know this. Sometimes the folks that they hired in the very beginning, they just aren't capable of taking it to the next level. Doesn't make them bad people, but sometimes the clients you have aren't necessarily the clients that will get you to the next level. So for me personally, you just want to keep it really simple. Like I said, my name is Dan Stalp. I'm with Sandler Training, and we are a sales coaching and professional development. That's all the crazy you have to get there, because that's not where the magic is. Your magic is going to be right down in here. So, and then there's 3 types of people we work with: business owners who sell, sales management, and peak performer sales professionals. Does that mean that every client I have is a peak performer? Nope. But that's what I want, because they get so much more out of it and everything just goes better. But I don't always get that, but that's what I want. Now this is the magic right here. Instead of talking about, all the blah, blah, blah about, we're the top franchise in the country and we have 260 offices and we're in 30 countries, which nobody cares about. We're going to talk about why someone might want to learn more. And what you want to do is you always want to have a pain word. Tired is a pain word. Remember, 80%, I don't know if I said this, 80% of us are more likely to do something because we're moving away from something. Only 20% of us will do something to move toward something. Now, I want to work with any of them, but if you know this, that they're trying to move away from something, then let's stop talking about how we're so freaking awesome and just think that they're going to catch that, okay? So one example is they're tired of doing too much unpaid consulting. So that means they're getting used for their information. Another example is they're just afraid to make sales calls, but they know they got to do it. And another example is they're fed up with losing sales to the lowest price when they have a superior product. Okay, so we're going to do another little thing here. I just want you guys to see. Now this is just to have you experience it, but you need to do this for yourself, right? This is not, you can't just take my stuff and make it your own, but I want you just to experience it. So let's pretend that you could only pick one of these that intrigues you the most, or maybe that you feel it a little bit. Okay, so you're either going to put 1, 2, or 3 in the chat, but I want you to just say which one did you feel a little bit of tinge of, I wonder how he does that. And then I want you guys to see what happens, okay? So if it's the unpaid consulting one that bothers you the most, put that in there. If it's that you just really struggle with that 800-pound phone, put 2 in there. And if it's that you hate being commoditized when you have a better product, then you put 3 in there. And so I'm gonna leave this up here so you can see what it is. And then in about 5 or 6 seconds, this isn't rocket science, it shouldn't take you very long, I'm gonna stop share and I'm just gonna take a peek at what's coming in. So either put a 1, a 2, or a 3. And I'll wait till our chats get to at least 10. We're at 7 right now. 8, 9, 10. Okay. Now let's see what it said. Wow, a lot of 3s. Every time I do this, it's different. And that's not the point. It's not like, okay, so I'm getting rid of 1 and 2 because you guys picked 3. The point is, there was 1, 2, or any 1s. But I mean, I've done this probably 5 times, and I think this is the first time we've never had a 1. So what's my point? My point is, the most you can do verbally without people losing the first one is 3. Okay. So why not do 3? 3 total. Here, I think I'm getting confusing you guys. Let me come back here. The most you can do is three altogether is what I meant to say. Now you happen to still guys like this one more, but the reality of it is I've done this several times where we've done this poll and it never comes out the same. So to really maximize the likelihood that someone will feel something with those 3 impact statements is to do 3. Also, if you've ever Googled 3 before, they sometimes call it the magic number. It's the perfect number. And then if you're doing more emails, the optimum number is 5 because then they can read it, right? But verbally, we can only comprehend 3. And if you go to a 4th one, they're just going to forget another one. Okay? Now, let's say I did this, and this is over the phone, and then I'd say, and this is a little bit of a takeaway. I don't suppose you or your people have ever felt this way. And then they usually say something like, well, yeah. Well, like which one? And let's just use 3 since that was the most common. The losing sales one to the lowest price. We have a superior product. We get commoditized all the time. So then I would say, tell me more about that. See, they get to talk again. But I haven't really told them anything of what I would call my features and benefits, like that we have 10 sessions a month and that we get unlimited coaching, because they don't care about that yet. Because if they don't really have some of this, it doesn't matter. So it's just something that, now this isn't just unique to post-COVID. This was unique. This was working before then, but since I am talking about this, I thought I'd be remiss by not even bringing this up. So I'm going to stop for a second. Deb, are there any questions that I missed? No? But who has a question? And again, if you want to unmute yourself, I think it'll go quicker. You don't have to type it all. You don't have to read it. Who wants to go? Anybody? Who's got, tell you what, put 1 aha so far in the notes. What's 1 aha in the chat? I'm sorry. If anybody's gotten an aha, what's it been? What resonated with you? Tell me more. Very good. What that allows you to do is shut your mouth. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I don't have to look at anybody, but we all know who we are, right? That we talk too much. Yeah, not all of us, but because this is a prospecting, probably more of you have a problem with that than don't. I'm just letting you know. True, we get to know the person. Yeah. Here's the thing, the sales calls are not about you. But when we don't want to do them and we have to do them and it sucks, somehow it becomes about us, and it's really not about us. Okay, I see another one. Tell me more. As for the decision maker, yeah, that's worth the price of admission right there. Some of us have just mistakenly just never really thought about it. I mean, you can call anywhere you want. The question is, what appears to be easier in the beginning, calling a gatherer, becomes way harder to actually get the sale. So it's a little harder sometimes, except now because they're more available, to get to the decision maker, but it's way easier after that. So what we like to say is sometimes you have to slow down in the beginning to speed things up later. And what a lot of us want to do is we want to speed it up right away, and then we're pissed that it's not happening. Don't shoot the messenger. Okay, let's keep going. All right, that's enough. Okay, now we're going to transition to behavior. And there's probably some owners on here. There's probably some salespeople. There's probably some sales management. And there's probably some people that were just intrigued by what's he going to say. But anyway, but the reality of it is this is a really interesting principle. You can't manage anything you can't control. So for people who have ever managed a salesperson, or maybe even manage your own pipeline, a lot of us really overly focus on the outcomes. And what we don't focus on is the behaviors. Okay, so a lot of times, I mean, I'm just going to stop sharing because I want to see some faces. Who's ever had this happen? You're towards the end of the month, and you know that your month is sucking wind. And then your manager calls you and says, hey, I just wanted to let you know you're not having a very good month. Like, wow, Einstein. I mean, really? That's all you got? Thanks. I'm not that stupid, right? So it's outcome, outcome, outcome. Now, if instead they said, I know you're having a tough month, but I really liked that you've made more calls this month, and I can start to see that you're having more appointments towards the end of the month, and I think this is just a blip on the radar. Way more supportive, fair? I can actually do something with that. It's like, oh gosh, you noticed it too? Oh, aren't you a smarty pants? Thank God they pay you a lot. So no, that's not helpful. It's not, okay? And they know when they're having a good month. But you can't coach them if you don't know some of the behavioral things that are happening. Now, what's difficult about this pause is if you weren't checking on their behavior before and they're all working from home right now, it's really a shit show. I mean, who knows what's happening? I mean, it's just, who knows, right? And that's why, like I said earlier, the gatherers aren't as available. They're out walking the dog and day drinking. I mean, it's just what's going down. And so if we don't know what they're doing, we don't know what they're doing. And all we see is the results. And then they can blame it on COVID. It's COVID's fault. Okay? So let's see here. Is there anything, Deb, do you mind if there's anything we need to address in the chat?
Let's see. So there's a question, but you have to sell yourself. So how do you do that without being an egomaniac?
Well, first of all, you never want to be an egomaniac. We have one as our president right now. And so anywho, but he's still, hey, it is what it is. But the reality of it is they can tell how confident you are, Stony, and competent by the questions you ask. And they know how incompetent and less confident we are when we talk about ourselves all the time. I know I've had a lot of people say, a lot of us misread ego. Well, he sure thinks a lot of himself. I go, no, he doesn't think a lot of himself. Because people that think a lot of themselves don't act that way, right? If it's all about you, that's a low self-esteem. That's not a high. That's overcompensating for something. So being able to ask questions that are really meaningful and get people to think, they just go, okay, Stony knows his stuff, because there's no way he could have asked that question if he didn't know his stuff.
So Dan, I have 2 questions to kind of follow up with that. One is, what is a good reference of time that we should be asking questions to the client before we do get into talking past the questions? And then also give us some tips on how we get to the decision makers.
Yep. Okay. So a couple of things. One, in a normal sales call, let's assume it's face-to-face or like a Zoom, and let's pretend you had an hour. Ideally, we want the prospect talking 70% and us only 30. Now on the phone, because they haven't met you yet, you don't want to like grill them, right? But I think the posture that you want to have is to seek to understand. Okay? Seek to understand. Or let's look at it another, there's a Hippocratic oath that all doctors take. And that is to not prescribe prematurely. And that's why there's malpractice insurance, and it's super duper expensive. Well, all I'm going to say is if there was malpractice insurance for salespeople prescribing before they know what the hell's going on, that would be astronomically expensive, because we are guilty of malpractice all the time. So if we seek to understand and maybe just get a little bit of information before we start throwing our darts in there, I think you're more likely to prescribe something that actually benefits them as opposed to you just trying to get a sale. Okay. Now, gatekeepers, right now, well, even before the pause, there's less and less every year. Would everybody agree? Now, when you call them the big companies, they're still there. But one thing with gatekeepers is you want to enlist their help and not try to go, excuse me, would you get out of the way so I can talk to so-and-so? You're in my way, right? Because they don't like that. And I know it's shocking. And they're typically not the best paid in the place. So they don't get paid well. They can get in trouble if they accidentally let somebody in, and people treat them crappy. And so let's not do that. So one way to do it is if you can kind of have like a visual of sorts. Who's ever been on a scavenger hunt before? If I can see you, or you can either just go down and put a little thumbs up or do one of these. Anybody been on a scavenger hunt? And most of the time it was kind of fun, wasn't it? So let's say you're trying to find out who the decision maker is, and you just enlist the help of the gatekeeper. So was that from Courtney? So Courtney, it might sound like this. Hey, Courtney, this is Dan Stalp with Sandler. Hey, I'm on a little bit of a scavenger hunt, and I was wondering if you could help me with something. Okay. Now, at this point, she's probably not going to say no yet, because it's different, right? And then, so let's say if she says no, well, then I know. I mean, my God, we can't even do this. You're probably not going to send me into the decision maker if you can't even do this. But let's say, I just need I'm on a little bit of a scavenger hunt. Can you role play it with me, Courtney?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Thank you. So then I'd say, so Courtney, here's what I'm looking for. Well, first of all, Courtney, what do you do?
I'm a sales manager.
And for what? What kind of company?
AT&T.
AT&T. Okay. So let's say, I'm with AT&T, and I'm trying to figure out who makes the decision on behalf of, I'm just going to go with mobile because I don't know what else to say, your mobile cell phone spend. Any idea who that might be?
Do you mean who pays the bill?
Yeah, who ultimately makes the decision on it? Like they decide, like when you guys switched last time, who ultimately made that decision?
Well, I think that'd be somebody back in IT. Do you want me to just transfer you to the line back there?
Yeah, that would be great. How about if you gave me a name? Because sometimes I've been transferred to IT and I'm actually not in IT. Who might that be?
Oh, okay, sure. I'll look up a name here.
Okay, just be patient. You guys think, well, she's being nice to you. I go, no, when you try to enlist her help, she's more likely to help you. Okay, so let's pretend we get a name, and then say, yeah, that'd be great if you could transfer me.
Okay.
So let's say I get transferred, and then I'm going to leave that little 30-second commercial that I just shared with you guys. Or you could say, hey, I'm on a little bit of a scavenger hunt. I really could use your help on something. 90% of us, maybe 95 of us, do want to help people. And so that enlists her wanting to help me because I'm not being so large and in charge and trying to get past her and acting like I'm something that I'm not. I'm being genuine and transparent with her. Okay, did that help a little bit? All right, let's keep going. We got a couple more things to do, and I'm looking at the clock here. So, and then rather than just managing your numbers, what we find is people tend to prospect like cruise control. So they set their goal at 70 miles an hour, and if they're going up a hill and it's a little, they're punching it down, and they're going down there, they lay it off. And if any of you have ever done at least a 10K, that is not the way to run. You do not run long distances running as fast as you can and then having to stop and puke and start over again. That's not the way to get a good, the best way to do it is to have a nice steady gait. So what we suggest is you prospect, you just keep it there regardless of what's happening outcome wise, because outcomes are sometimes just, for months at a time or a quarter at a time, they're just not reflective of what's going on. But over a bigger period of time, they are. So some of us are wearing ourselves out by prospecting based on outcomes and not based on just being consistent with our behavior. So even when you do all the right things, sales is clumpy. Like when you're consistently prospecting, it's clumpy. When you are also prospecting clumpy, it becomes extremely clumpy. Okay, let's keep going.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Sales calls and prospecting can be tough on a lot of no's in a row. Do you have some advice? Do we take a break or keep plowing through? What's your advice on those tough days?
Yeah, it is tough. And the thing that I think helps a lot of people kind of mentally get through that is that they are not rejecting you personally. It's not a personal rejection. And so, but if I take it personally, then, my foot really hurts, but I'm stepping on it. I'm contributing to that. These people don't even know them. And a lot of the meanness or rejection or whatever has little or nothing to do with you and has a lot to do with them. I've had bad days and I'm just not as nice on those days. I'm just saying, so, if Simon called me and I just wasn't feeling that great or whatever, I might not be that nice to him, but it has nothing to do with Simon. It's my stuff. And then the other part of it is to have a goal that I'm going to do so many a day helps you push through that too. So I could say, you know what, I was going to do 10 today. I'm at 4. It's 11 o'clock in the morning and I need a little bit of break. That's fine. I just got to make sure they're done by 5. So I don't get a pass. This is not life and death. This is not like we're on the other side of the world fighting a war. This is just pick up the phone and try to talk to somebody. It's really not that bad. So, but when people don't know their number, they stop at 4, at 11, and they're in the bar by 3, and then the next day they feel about the same. Okay. So by doing the behavior anyway, they actually start to feel better. Because if I do 10, if that's my number and I do 10 of them and I don't get a hold of one person, I can still walk out that day as a winner because I did what I had control over. And here's the thing, you guys all know, the next day, my numbers look a lot different. Like I get like 6 out of 10 because some of the other ones call back, and you just, it's like watching the stock market. You can't just watch the stock market and drive yourself crazy. You just do what you know you need to do. Okay.
Are there any last questions? Because we're getting close on time.
Yeah, we are getting close on time.
I want to talk about is in your bio, you said you have 3 books out. How do we get a copy of that? Where do we go to find one?
Yeah, so a couple ways. You could either just go into the chat here and then I can send you the link, but it's the link is the Reunion Books, all one word, the reunionbooks.com. And then 2 of the 3, we haven't gotten a third one. They're also out on Amazon. So if you just Google Stalp and Reunion, it'll pop up that way too. So
may we share that out? Because this is again being recorded. May we share that?
You bet. Absolutely. Or I guess I could type it in the chat and you guys can just cut and paste it.
So any last questions that we have for Dan? I think you have week-long classes, so we just had an hours of your time and we're so appreciative of that. And I know I've made lots of notes. You are here in Kansas City, so if there are companies that would love to talk with Dan about doing some sales training, I know he would be very interested in talking with you.
Yeah, and I've got a special offer today. If you don't, do I have time to share that real quick?
You do.
Okay. Just a second here. Oops. I'm getting. Okay, I just found it here. Jumped ahead a little bit. Boy, for some reason I always want to click that red button, but it says leave, and that wouldn't be good. Not ready to leave. Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's almost like that little kid that you said, don't touch the red button, and I always want to touch it. Okay, so here we go. So one of our assessment companies has offered us something that I've been offering out. I don't know how much longer they're going to do this, but I did double check today and they're still offering it. But basically, it's an assessment that shares how you would respond in a crisis situation. And it's strictly, it's really designed more for managers, but if there are some folks on here that are non-management, I'll definitely allow you to take it. And if you, it's a free assessment because they're not charging me. And then what I've been doing is then I host like a 45-minute debriefing session. So if you decide to take it, you'll get your results directly sent to you. And then if you want to participate in the 45-minute debriefing session, I'm going to just have it and you can just sign up for it, but you don't have to. And it just kind of gives you an idea of, just how you do under pressure, kind of a pressure tested assessment. And it only takes maybe 10 minutes to take it. And like I said, I've been scheduling 45-minute reviews, but it's kind of, I mean, they were kind enough to give it back to us. And so we are in turn giving it back to people too, just because it might be something that you're not aware of that might be holding you back. Of course, there might be something you're not aware of that could be propelling you forward. So if you just type crisis in the chat, then I know, and then I'll have to figure out, you guys can download the chat, right? Let's see, did she leave? I think
No,
you can.
Kelsey should be on there. Kelsey, can you do that?
Yes, you can download the chat. There should be, in the bottom right corner of the chat, there's 3 dots that you can click on, and then you can click Save Chat.
Okay, so the main thing is I'll have Kelsey save it, but if you want to take that assessment, and then you don't have to participate in a 45-minute debrief, but that is available to you, then she'll know, she can let me know who wants to take it, and then I'll send out a link to just you people, not to everybody. Okay, so only if you want to take the crisis assessment. All right, anything else before we wrap up? Any last questions or comments? So a couple, just to recap, some of you are really good at working hard. If you can change your script a little bit, you can work smarter too, because just like anything, if you think about technique on doing anything, you kind of get better at it. And some of our techniques may have been making it a little harder on us than we need to. Attempt to call the decision maker at all times. Doesn't mean you always get them, but if you don't attempt to get them, you can't get them, right? And then the other thing is, the last thing we didn't talk about is attitude. And I would just encourage you guys to really work on your body, mind, and spirit. Like really watch what you're watching. If you're getting a lot of daily dose of the news, that's probably not supporting you. There's a difference between being informed and being freaked out. And we just need to be informed. Most of that stuff on there, they don't care about you. They're just trying to get ratings. Okay, so watch what you're watching. Maybe pay attention to who you're spending time with. Some people are just like negative Nelly on this. I would just love them from afar. Just don't spend a lot of time with them because they're going to negatively impact you. And then, of course, it's nice out now. Go out, get some exercise, read some good books, listen to some positive podcasts. The world is not going to hell in a handbasket, regardless of what the news says, because that's what they're just like piranhas on this. So, just be careful what you're putting in your head. And thank you, Sarah. She knows, she's been on a Zoom call before. She knows how to do the thumbs up. All right, anything else? I know we got a hard stop here.
I will tell you that I started off by saying how honored and blessed we are to have you today, and I'm going to end with that. You were phenomenal. I know, again, I've taken so many notes and I was watching other people. So thank you so much for joining us.
It was my pleasure. My honor. Thanks for having me.
Right.
All right, bye everybody.